Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Hello again, everybody. It's the Irish Dude. I was talking to a colleague of mine recently and about what subjects I might tackle on my channel, and he says, "Oh, you got to do religion. You've got to do religion," he said. And I said, "Well, there's a lot of stuff out there already on that subject, but it is something I do want to take a look at and want to talk about. So today I'm going to talk about something very specific when it comes to religion. So for this, I'm going to take a little trip back in time, just for a moment. Don't worry, I'll return to the present day soon enough. I want to talk about somebody called Thomas Aikenhead. You may never have heard of this gentleman, but he was originally from Edinburgh. And Thomas Aiken is famous, or infamous, as being the last person to be executed in Britain for blasphemy. Thomas was 20 at the time that this happened to him, and some of the details of the indictment are interesting. Allegedly, he repeatedly maintained in conversation that theology was a rhapsody of ill-invented nonsense, and implied that Jesus was effectively a con artist performing cheap magic tricks. Now, Thomas said a lot more than that, allegedly, but really it's very similar to things that I used to say at about 15 years of age at the back of a religious education class. Now, to our modern Western eyes, the idea of hanging a young man at 20 for something like this is utterly appalling. But Britain at the time was 100% Christian, and devoutly so. Not unlike the situation in some more modern nations of the Islamic persuasion, where blasphemy can still carry a death sentence. Now, Thomas Aikenhead was executed in 1697, but even now, in both Ireland and Britain, there are still blasphemy laws in place, and you can still, technically at least, be prosecuted for blasphemy. Now, I'm not even going to tackle the question as to why a supreme, all-powerful being needs to be protected by the law in such a way. Maybe he's very, very sensitive about such matters. I somehow doubt it, though. So, as I've said already, Britain at the time was completely a 100% Christian nation. Much more recently, in 2015, and I think he's possibly said it again since, David Cameron, the then Prime Minister, referred to Britain as a Christian nation. I think this is an interesting claim, and maybe one that we should have a little look at. So let's go back even further in time and talk about the human inhabitation of Britain. So modern humans actually first arrived in Britain nearly 2,000 years ago. But the Ice Ages made sure that Britain at the time wasn't the most inviting place to live in. So realistically, we could probably say that there's been a stable human population in Britain going back about 12,000 years. Christianity arrived in Britain about 600 AD, give or take a few years. It had a few goes before then, but it didn't really stick. But it was pretty well established around that time. So if we're a little bit generous and say Christianity has been here for about 1,500 years, my rough calculation would tell me that Britain's been a Christian nation for about 12% of the time it has been inhabited. So I'm going to gloss over the fact that the actual particular flavour of Christianity that's been practiced in Britain has actually changed over the course of this time, mainly thanks to Henry's taste for wives. So I had to look at some census figures, the most recent census being 2011, and the British Humanist Association do a little breakdown of some of this on their website. Now, we'd obviously need to take what they have to say with a pinch of salt. They do have an angle after all. But they make a big deal about the way the questions are worded in the census. So what they did is they asked the question is, what religion do you identify with? And 59% of people said Christian, and 39% of people said no religion. But when asked, are you religious? Only 29% of people actually said yes, and 65% of people said no. So I think what a lot of people are saying is that they may be culturally Christian, which may be what David Cameron means. I can't quite get into that guy's head. So Christian in that way of looking at it could be the same way that we refer to well-known atheists Carl Sagan and Isaac Asimov as being Jewish. The census figures looked at the difference between the figures from 2001 to 2011, and there is definitely a significant drop in people who identify as being Christian. There's also a huge drop in people who actively practice their religion, with about 9% of people actually attending regular religious services. If you look at the same period, you've also seen a rise in Islam to 4.8% of the population. Since the 2112 census, there have been further polls conducted, all of which show a significant decline in the level of practice of Christianity, or people identifying as being Christian or religious. This has been fully admitted to by the religious figures, who see this as a problem that they need to address. If these trends were to continue, I think what's most likely to happen is that many people may continue to consider themselves to be culturally Christian, or at least aware of the values of Christianity, but the number practicing will be extremely low. It wouldn't be too difficult a step to take then to say that since the Muslim community are much more devout and much more likely to practice their religion, that the largest grouping of people that actively practice their religion could, in the future, be Islamic. So does that mean that Britain would become an Islamic nation? Now, I'm not nearly naive enough to believe that this means that there's been some great rise in rationality in science. I think this may play a small part, but I think it's much more likely that people just can't be bothered. Religion tends to do best when people are in times of difficulty, when they need somebody to turn to. Generally, people turn to God when they want something. So I think what I'm saying here is having blasphemy laws based on a religion that's practiced by potentially a small minority of your society seems to me to be ridiculous. Religion in its essence is, like anything else, it's a collection of ideas. And any collection of ideas is there to be challenged. Those that hold those views are entitled to defend their position by argument and reason. They should not have any recourse to the law. Religions, as we can see, come and go. They have their periods of dominance, decline, some vanish and then come back, like paganism, but none deserve special protection. I think too many people today try to equate things like Islamophobia with racism. There is no such thing as Islamophobia any more than there's any other religiophobia. It's perfectly valid to criticize the tenets of a religion. Personally, I think socially Britain is becoming a secular nation, and maybe it's time that politicians recognize that, and the danger of people trying to promote one religious idea in law is dangerous. Now, I'm not just saying this as somebody who does identify as being a non-believer. I think having a secular nation protects people of religious belief, particularly those who hold minority religious beliefs. Anyway, I think today I've just scratched the surface. It might be something that I revisit in the future. Let me know what you think. That's what the comment section is for. So please like and subscribe. All the usual jazz. Follow me on Twitter. This is the Irish Dude, wishing you all a great day.